All right, we're getting kind of tight on chop space here. Had to get welding pipe and got apparently building a hydraulic unit and all sorts of crap. But anyway, I got liner soap. If we can go ahead and get the sleeves put in. I got one freeze plug. I'm still waiting. I need one that goes here and one that goes here. But finding freeze plugs is kind of an adventure anymore, apparently. I found this one at John Deere, and the other two I need are on order because apparently nobody stocks freeze plugs anymore. I don't know. I miss we had an old auto parts store in town, and that guy, like, by old, I mean, I think it started in like the 60s. And that guy had everything under the sun. He had like freeze plugs. He had drawers and drawers and drawers full of different freeze plugs. I mean, you walk in there, if you needed something, he had it. And he actually knew what the hell you were talking about when you went in and said, I need a freeze plug. But anyway, so first things first, we're going to drop the liners in here dry and toe clamp them down and check protrusion. They already checked it at the machine shop, says good, but you can't always take people for their word, so you're better off to double check it. So I'm going to drop the sleeves in here real quick. This one here is going to get a shim, which looks like this. One's a 4 thou and one's a 2 thou. I should need the 4 thou, but I got both just in case. So them little bastards are salty. One was $40 and the other one was almost 30. Like, wow. So anyway, I will drop these sleeves in here real quick. Alright, so you just drop the sleeves in, get yourself some washers, and toe clamp the sleeves in. You don't gotta like torque them down or anything, you just get them snug, that way you know the sleeves are seated in the counter bore. And get yourself a dial indicator. And you just, so right now you're at 0. And you run it up onto the lip of the sleeve. I got the magnet turned on because it keeps the indicator steadier. And can't see because of the, I can see, you can't see because of the glare. That's about 3 thou protrusion, which was the low sleeve. I got a 4 thou. Uh-oh. What? I got a 4 thou shim and a 2 thou shim. Well, I started off with the 4 thou shim because he said it was 0 protrusion. So I said 4 thou shim. He said all the other ones were set at about 4 thou. We'll put the 4 thou shim in and be good. So I put the 4 thou shim in, indicated it. It had 16 thousandths of protrusion. It's like, what the hell? So I got it out and mic'd it, and yeah, it's a 15 thou shim. Don't know where the hell that came from. So we'll put the 2 thou shim in, and that gets us about 3 thou protrusion. And then I indicated the other sleeves, and they are all pretty much right dead on at 4. So I got one sleeve that's about 1 thou under the other ones, but you're not going to get a 1 thou or a 1 thou shim, and obviously it's not exactly 0 protrusion if a 2 thou shim brings it up to 3, so. But the spec is teeter. I don't know why you said no. That's hydraulic oil. You don't need to lick that, goofball. The spec on these is 1 to 4 thou of protrusion, so we're at the high end of that, which is good, because the more or the higher you are on that spec, the better gasket crush you're gonna get, or the better crush you're gonna get on your fire rings. So I think we can go ahead and put the O-rings on and put these things in permanent. Okay, so I'm glad I'm doing this early enough. Mayball's still open because I thought that the black O-ring was on the oil side and the red O-ring was on the coolant side. Well, I just got off the phone with Mayball, and that's bass-ackwards. The black O-ring goes on the coolant side. It's not compatible with oil. The red O-ring goes on the oil side. So, glad I called Mayball to sort that out, or I'd have put him in wrong. Anyway, this is liner soap. It's a non-detergent coconut-based soap that must be used on O-rings and packings when installing cylinder liners. Coconut-based was the interesting part. So, let's get some. Put it on the O-rings. I put a little bit more of a dab on there and work it around just so you got plenty. And you take yourself a pencil, or really anything soft that won't hurt the O-rings. And you work it like this, and that'll take any of the twists out that might be in the O-rings from putting them on the sleeves. And then we'll take a little bit more of the soap. Put it on the landing where the seals go. Or where the O-rings go, I mean, they're not seals. I don't know if you can see or not. There we go. When you press them in by hand, you don't beat them in with a hammer. You gotta beat them in with a hammer, something's not right. So, that's how you put a sleeve in. Alright, so this is the last piston I gotta put in. So far, everything's been looking pretty good. Where did I put my knife? Slide your inserts in. Put it in the ring compressor. Want to make sure you leave a pretty decent chunk of the skirt sticking out so you got something to line it up in the sleeve. And then see, that ought to be able to And then just before you do anything, you want to make sure you got the front of the rod and the front of the piston facing the same way, which is right. And then you want to make sure that you're putting it in toward the front of the block, which is up in this case. Make sure you're not against the crank. Spin the crank around to a point where you can get the main cap on. And then since you're going to plastic gauge it, you want to turn the crank and actually run it into the rod and start pushing the piston down. That way you know you got pressure on the piston so that your crush on your plastic gauge is correct. So you want pressure down, not up. And we lay a little piece of plastic gauge on there. It's actually kind of big. And again, we're doing this dry so that we don't make a mess. I also forgot to mention, when I was doing the main caps, you want to be very, very, very careful not to rotate the crank because it'll smear the plastic gauge, and then obviously it ain't going to be any good. Just running them down with this because they're long and they take forever, but not clicking it or not letting this thing click or anything because you don't want to torque it. That's what the torque wrench is for. And we're gonna bust it back loose, take the cap back off. These have all been gauging pretty decent. They're kind of on the higher end of the spec, which I don't know, you'd like to see a little bit on the lower end of the spec. That way it's a little tighter, but it's still within spec, so can't really complain a whole lot. And then we gauge it, and we are between 15 and 20 thou, which they've all been gauging. They've all gauged identical, so it's not that the main or the rod journals are dead nuts on perfect to each other. But like I say, it's just a tad. It's just a little bit high, on the higher end of your, or the looser end of your tolerance. So, but as long as it's in tolerance, that's what matters. So now, I'm going to crank back around. Get her some assembly lube on here. Scrape the plastic gauge off, that would help. Don't want to be leaving none of that in there. When you scrape that off, you just want to use your fingernail. You don't want to use anything that's going to hurt the bearing. Alright, I probably had to cut that last clip off in a weird spot because Dad was welding and I didn't hear the radio on it, and then Dad shut the welder off and I was like, wait, the radio's on. We can't have none of that because YouTube's a bitch. So, I don't really know at this point where I had to cut that off. So basically, all the rods are in, everything's torqued, everything's in spec. It's, like I say, it's on the higher end of, or the looser end of the spectrum, but it's still well within tolerance, so should be good. But I think this is probably a good stopping point for today. That's pretty much all the tedious shit done right there. Everything else is just going to be slapping parts back on, putting shellacking gaskets and putting in new seals, but I got to get that freeze plug and the one for the front before I can put the timing cover or the back plate back on. I can put the rear main back on. Tomorrow I'll probably go ahead and get the head put back together. Should be able to put the oil cooler on, and probably wait to put the oil return cover on, because this is where they return the oil out of the bypass oil filter. Probably wait to put that on until, yeah, I can put that on. It's basically just starting to put bolt external stuff back on now, because, yeah, everything's, all the internal guts except for the oil pump. Hopefully we got the stuff to put that back together before the end of the week, because for all intents and purposes, the crankcase is good to go. Yesterday I put all the oil plugs back in the oil galleries, put the oil relief plungers and everything back in it. So, yeah, basically all we got to do is just put the head together, slap the head back on, put the timing train back together, put the injection pump. I mean, well, obviously you guys all know it needs to go back on it, but like I say, it should go pretty quick from here on out. Ain't that purty? So, I guess we will catch you guys tomorrow. Probably working on the head. Alright, so today I want to get the head back together and hopefully get it sitting on the block and torqued down. I went through, got all of my stuff cleaned up. So, nothing to it but to get after it, I suppose. gotta find. I forgot to look for my valve seals. All right, I found them. And on this engine, it's not the case on all engines. Some engines use valve seals on all the valves. In this case, they only have them on the intake valve. I've explained this. We talked about this when they hit on the 66, but for those of you that weren't here for that, don't really need a valve seal on the exhaust valve, because when the exhaust valve is open, cylinder's pushing up, it is exhausting air, so anything that might leak past the valve guide is going to be pushing oil back out into your valve cover. When your intake is open, you're sucking air in, so if there's any residual oil on the valve stem, it's going to try to suck it past the valve guide and pull it into the cylinder, and you don't want that. So that's why in general, you only really need valve seals on the intake valves. Some engines have them on all the valves, but not in this case. Okay, got all the valves in. I'll pop the injectors in after it's on the block. That way I don't got to worry about hurting the tips. So this here is supposed to be Brad Maybaugh's new end all be all, solve all 310 head gasket problems. Head gasket. It is an aluminum gasket with that shiny stuff. Has got silicone bonded on both sides. So that's your backer, and then it's got separate copper fire rings that sit like so. But I guess we'll see. They've been using them. They've been having good luck with them. I called today just to see what they do. They said don't bother putting any sort of head gasket sealer, copper coat, anything like that. They said the bonded silicone will take care of that, and said torque it down, let it sit overnight, torque it again, and you should be good to go. So we're gonna get her set on here, and we'll give her a torque tonight and hit it again tomorrow, and should be good. So fingers crossed. Here's hoping, because I don't want to do it again like last time. Okay, so with the amount of crush that we got to give this thing, I think I'm going to take it down in 4 steps just to be safe. So yeah. Them copper rings have got to go down quite a ways. The torque pattern on these heads is kind of interesting. Because you'd think they'd, because obviously you start 1, 2, 3, and then they go 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you think you go 7, 8, 9, 10, but they don't. They got something weird going on here. But I'm guessing it's got to do with the fact that the bolt patterns are offset to one side of the head. If I had to guess. So let's go to, because there's actually an updated torque spec for these heads. Because 133, not 135. Usually on all heads, the outside 4 bolts are less than the inside because you don't got as much material and you don't want to flex the head. But I can't remember what the factor or what the stock. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I can't remember what the stock torque spec. Oh, I guess it's not. We just wrote that in there so that we knew what was going on. I could have swore there was an updated torque spec on these head bolts, but Anyway, it's 133 on the outsides, 4 and 210 on the rest of them. So the first step I went to 70. This step I'm going up to 133. Then the next step, I'll skip the outside 4. Actually, the next couple steps, I'll skip the outside 4. And then on the last round, we'll go through and re-click them in order. Okay. Here's 130, or 133. We'll go up to say 170 on the next step. And like I say, I'll skip the outside 4 because obviously they're already at torque. But when you pull the inside of the head down, you're going to lessen the torque on the outside 4. So that's why on the last round, which I'll take the last round, I'll go all up to 210. But on those outside 4, I'll back the torque wrench down and click everything in order. And then you would go 9, 10. So we skip those 2 outside. And then 11 and 12. So now, on this last step, we'll take the inside all the way up to 210, and I will get the outside 4 in order. But I'll just back torque wrench down, back down to 133 and click them. But they will probably move because you crush the head. This last step is fun on the engine stand. Now for 9 and 10, we got it back down to 133. Didn't move nearly as much as I thought. And we got to go back up to 210 for 11 and 12. And back down to 133. This is where it'd be nice to have 2 torque wrenches. All right. It pulled down, it's sitting on the gasket, so got good crush on the fire rings. So, probably my stopping point for tonight. And tomorrow we should be able to we'll pull it down one more time, go through, re-click everything, make sure we didn't get any more crush from static pressure sitting on them copper rings, because obviously you really ain't gonna crush that aluminum plate. All your crush is happening in them fire rings. And put the injectors in it and should be good to set the rocker arms in it. Basically should be good to put the rest of the head back together. Minus the manifolds, we'll put those in after it's in the tractor just to make life easier. So, I guess we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Okay, so we're ready to put the valve train back together. Got my injectors in, put new seals on those, even though they were only had like 35-40 hours on them to begin with, if that. Put all my manifold studs back in, retorqued the head. Bolts didn't budge 1 inch. I didn't figure they would. What else? I think that's it. But I got my push rods up here, rocker arm, valve cover, whole 9 yards. So we'll set you there. There's that. And we'll put some slickum in the cups. And I'm not going to put any on tops of the valves because that makes it harder to, well, it makes it a mess trying to set them. And then the fun part, maybe they're all going to stay up. Yeah, come on. Stay in there, you booger. sweet. Fine thread has always got to be difficult. Alright, now we need a speed handle for them tall ones because they're going to be a pain in the butt. Alright, now these nuts work up to 27. Okay, there's that. Okay, now we can go through and set the valves. On these things it's easy because intake and exhaust are both 30 and 30. Some of them are actually fairly close. This one's almost there, but we're going to tighten her down a little more. Oh, wow. That's a little excessive. I like that. Too loose. A little tight. Perfect. Adjusting valves is the one thing I hate the most because it never fails. You get it set where you want it, you tighten the nut up, you move the adjusting screw, and then you're back to square one. But that one's good. And roll the engine over. Oh, wow. I dare say we got a little bit more compression than we had before. We got a lot more compression than we had before. It rolled over easier than that before. And the rings aren't even seated yet, which is saying something. So obviously you start to seat the rings and then your compression's going to go up even more. Beautiful. And down the line we go. All right. Rocker arms all torqued down. Valve lash is set. Got the lube line for the rocker arm shaft put in. Put some oil on the shaft itself. You can take an oil can and poke it into these holes and kind of very carefully force oil into the rocker arms themselves to kind of pre-lube everything. I got the return assembly fuel return rail put back on. Obviously injectors are in, tightened down. Thermostat housings back on, and I was gonna put the rocker arm cover back on, but the gasket was a little goobered up inside the box, so I put some Permatex on the rocker arm cover and got some weight on there to kind of get it to stick. That way it's not all screwed up when you put it on, because these things are kind of fun to get on there right. They used to have a rubber one that worked really good and was reusable, and they can't get them damn things anymore. All I can get's the cork ones. So when I put them in, I only Permatex one side. That way, if you ever got to take the rocker arm cover off, you don't need a new gasket, because as long as they come apart and don't tear, the cork gaskets are reusable. It's just you got to get them apart without hurting them. So anyway, this is my stopping point for today. I think tomorrow we might work on getting the timing train put back together. Hopefully get the injection pump and the water pump on, and the front will be done. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Alright, I did not get nearly as much done on this thing today as I wanted. My last day of work this morning, so there was that. And then I had some buddies from college I ain't seen in a while, wanted to go out to lunch, so they came up. We went out to lunch, and were around and shot the shit for a while. I was like, you know what, everything's been going on, I just kind of want to take a day off. And they wanted to come to lunch, and I got home from work this morning, so I only slept about 2 hours to begin with, so I've been kind of tired. And it's like, you know what, I just want to take a day and enjoy it. And so, and the one guy I haven't probably talked to in better part of 2 years, it's like, you know what, we're just gonna not push hard to get anything done. But I started working on this about an hour ago. I got the rear main seal put on, so that's all taken care of. I got the front plate put on. I just got the tappet cover sitting on there. It's not tight, but I wanted it just to cover the top of the engine up so we don't have to worry about getting shit in it. Then I got the front cover on and the injection pump idler gear on. So I'm not going to go through the actual timing today, but we'll get the pump mounted real quick. So you got, bear with me here. So I took this out of the bag first. And I got everything wired together naturally. Hold on, I'll be with you in a moment. I should have worked ahead a little bit here. And so you got this here O-ring that sits in this groove, although you put it on the pump first. But we will put a little bit of schlickum in that groove. And I'll put a little on the O-ring. And then there's a pilot bushing on the front of the pump, and that O-ring just goes there, sits in that recess, and then you go like so. And then, as long as these washers fit, yeah, oh yeah, we're good. There's supposed to be washers on here, and there wasn't any, and the nuts have been eating into the pump housing. But you rotate the pump. They want you to rotate the pump until the stud, because these are slotted holes, and they want the pump in the center of the slot, so right about there. and everything's so long, once you get ready to do anything, you actually have to back the pump off and get the nuts on. And the back one is fun, and you can't see what you're doing, and you can't really get your hand in there. Okay, now I gotta reset my timing here. Well, this is your initial. Right there's about center, so that's where we'll put it. And then once you get it there, you're good to tighten it down, and then you do the rest of the timing with the gear for the most part. You might have to crack this loose and rock it a little bit, but I am, just for the sake of keeping it there, I'm going to snug up one nut just to keep it from trying to go anywhere. We'll do this one too. I ain't reefing down, we'll just kind of leave it there like that. Okay, so now, hopefully it shows up on camera. You see that, if like it's almost going straight up and down, there's a slot there in the pump rotor, and that engages with this slot on the pump drive shaft. And the pump drive shaft has the infamous umbrella seals. Hang on, I'll get you something to set on so you can see what I got going on here. Okay, so you put some grease in here. They have already pre-lubed this, but I'm going to put more in just to be on the safe side. I don't know if I ever talked about that pump. It's a good thing I had it rebuilt because she's just about ready to give up the ghost. They updated it to a weight basket. They put a new governor shaft in it. They did something to the rotor. I can't remember. There was almost $800 in parts inside that pump. So you take this guy. Look at shit in there. You take this guy and you gotta be very careful not to roll that umbrella seal. The first one is the hard one. They make a tool for this, but we don't do it enough to warrant the tool. And if you roll it, you know it, because it's... Here we go. We're good there. And the second one goes in easy. And then you just rotate it until it falls in. And then the drive gear will go on, and that engages this gear here. But we will worry about doing the actual static timing procedure on this tomorrow, because I got more plans for tonight yet. So, but we should have no issue getting this thing buttoned up the rest of the way tomorrow. The pile of parts is getting very, very small. So, yeah, I guess we will wrap this video up right here, and we will catch you guys for the final engine assembly tomorrow. So that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.